Before the show starts, drop a comment below with where you're watching from, then sit back, relax, and get ready for some chilling stories. I was on the force for 17 years before I turned in my badge. Seen a lot. Things most people wouldn't believe, even if I had the pictures. But there's one case, just one, that still wakes me up in the middle of the night, coated in sweat, reaching for a gun that's not there anymore. We called her Jane Doe, but in my mind, I still think of her as the girl by the tracks. It was early October, the kind of chilly morning that bites through your uniform, even with a thermal layer. I was called out to an area just past Mill Creek's old industrial zone, the place where the train runs twice a day, and no one really goes unless they've got a death wish or a drug habit. A couple of high school kids had ditched school and gone exploring. One of them threw up when he saw her. I don't blame him. She was lying perfectly still beside the rails, like someone had placed her there on purpose. Hands folded on her chest. Pale. Clean. No visible trauma. Just this expression on her face, like she'd seen something that broke her completely. Mouth slightly open, eyes wide and glassy. And the weirdest part? There wasn't a single damn drop of blood. We cordoned off the area, snapped our photos, went through the standard routine. No ID on her. Just a folded up piece of paper tucked into her coat pocket with 5 words written in black ink. Don't let them find me. That was it. Not signed. No smudges. Ink still fresh. We dusted it, of course. Nothing came up. Back at the station, I ran her description through every missing person's database I could access. Local, state, even national. Nothing. It was like she didn't exist. No fingerprints on file. No dental records that matched. Nothing in the news about a girl gone missing that even remotely resembled her. We even reached out to hospitals, churches, shelters, asked if anyone had seen a girl like her. Nobody had. The autopsy was inconclusive. That's the word they used. Her heart just stopped, apparently. Toxicology came back clean. No drugs. No alcohol. No trauma. The medical examiner said it was almost like someone had flipped a switch. I remember asking if fear could kill someone like that. He gave me a look like I'd grown another head. Now here's where it started getting strange. The night after we found her, I came home late, couldn't stop thinking about that note. And as I'm getting out of my car, I noticed something scratched into my hood. Real shallow, but you could see it in the right light. Let it go. My wife thought it was some punk kids. I wasn't so sure. 2 days later, I got a call from a block number around 3 a.m. I picked up, half asleep. The voice on the other end whispered, "You're not supposed to ask questions," then hung up. No background noise. No breathing. Just that one sentence. I reported it to my chief. He told me to get some rest and stop letting this girl crawl inside my head. That was the last time I mentioned it at the station. But it did get inside my head. I started digging on my own time. Went back to the tracks. Looked for security footage from nearby warehouses. Nothing. All the cameras in that stretch. Turned off or facing the wrong way. I spoke to the kids who found her. One of them, Tyler, swore he saw someone standing in the trees when they came running down the slope. Said the figure didn't move. Just watched. I asked if he could describe him. Tyler looked at me and said, "It wasn't a him." That stuck with me. Still does. 1 week later, the case was officially labeled unsolved and shelved. No leads. No ID. Just another cold file in a cabinet full of them. I didn't let it go though. Couldn't. That's when something happened that made it even worse. A week after the case was closed, I got another call, this time from a local train conductor named Pete, a guy I knew from way back. He sounded rattled. Said he saw someone on the tracks during a late-night run, heading west toward Pittsburgh. She looked exactly like the girl from your flyer, he told me. Only problem was, I never put out a flyer. I met Pete the next morning. He swore on his life he saw her, same dark coat, same long black hair. Said she was just standing near the tracks, staring at the train as it passed. She didn't flinch, didn't move, and when he looked in the rearview mirror, she was gone. I figured it was stress or maybe a look-alike, but the detail that got me? He said she had something in her hand, a piece of paper. When I asked what it said, he hesitated. I couldn't read it, he said, but I felt it, like it was for me, like it was a warning. Now I was full-on obsessed. My wife noticed I wasn't sleeping. Said I was different, edgy, distracted, jumpy. She wasn't wrong. I started visiting other stations along the line. Towns I hadn't been to in years. I asked about women who looked like Jane Doe. Most people shrugged. One guy in a diner near a Bensburg leaned in and said, "You talking about the girl who don't show up on cameras?" I froze. He told me a story about a woman who wandered into the diner a few weeks prior. Ordered black coffee, sat in the corner, never spoke. But when they tried to charge her, she was gone. Just like that. They checked the security footage to see when she left, but she was never there. Not once. I knew it was crazy, but it lined up. I drove out there myself. Asked for the footage. They still had it. And yeah, no sign of her. But there was a timestamp glitch, exactly 1 minute long, right in the middle of her supposed visit. I didn't tell anyone back home about this. Not my wife, not my old colleagues. I was starting to sound like the people we usually ignored. The ones who send in grainy photos claiming they saw Bigfoot or aliens in their backyard. But I couldn't stop. The last time I saw her, or whatever she is, was 8 months later. I'd parked my truck by the tracks one night, just watching, waiting. Like maybe the case would solve itself if I stared hard enough. And then, I saw movement about 50 feet away. A figure. Female. Long hair. Coat. She was facing away, but I knew. I stepped out of the truck, called out, "Hey, wait." But she didn't move. I started walking toward her. My flashlight flickered, which had never happened before. I was maybe 10 feet away when she slowly turned her head, not all the way, just enough for me to see her eye. It was wide, and terrified, like she was still running from something. She mouthed something, just once. I couldn't hear her, but I could read her lips. "They're still coming." Then she was gone. Just gone. I don't tell this story to many people. I know what it sounds like, but I keep that note with me. Don't let them find me. Sometimes I wonder if she was ever meant to be saved, or if I was supposed to see her, so I'd stay quiet. Either way, I haven't been near those tracks in years. But I still dream about them, and in those dreams, she's always running. The house was already gone by the time I got there. All that was left was a black skeleton of wood and nails, the chimney still standing like some kind of middle finger to the sky. I remember the smell, thick, chemical, and wrong. Not like a normal house fire. More like something you'd expect in a war zone. This was back in 2013, when I was still working out of Waldo County. I got the call around 4:30 in the morning. Possible arson. 1 survivor. 1 fatality. I pulled up to the scene just as the sun was starting to creep over the trees. There was frost on the grass, and smoke curling up in lazy ribbons. It looked quiet. Too quiet. The woman was sitting in the back of an ambulance with a silver blanket around her shoulders. Brown hair singed at the edges, face covered in soot, hands shaking like leaves in a storm. Her name was Olivia. She lived there with her husband, Daniel. Or so she said. Fire marshal hadn't made a call yet, but even without their input, something about it felt staged. Controlled. The kind of fire that starts in the right places, not by accident. And Daniel, well, he didn't make it out. They pulled his body from what used to be the kitchen. He was burned beyond recognition. Olivia kept saying the same thing over and over. He left the stove on. I told him not to, but he never listens. But here's the part that didn't sit right with me. She had no burns. Not a single one. And the kitchen? It wasn't the origin point. The fire had started from the outside. You could see the outline of the windows, glass blown inward. Traces of accelerant around the sills. Someone had set this house on fire from the lawn. I asked her why she didn't call 911 sooner. She looked at me like I'd spoken another language. "There's no service here," she said. "He never let us have it." Us. Not me. I noted that. Over the next couple days, I started digging. Asked around. Not many people in town knew Olivia. A few folks remembered seeing her at the store once in a blue moon, but always with Daniel. He didn't like her talking to people, one woman told me. He'd grip her wrist so tight her fingers went white. Classic control tactics. I'd seen it before. Isolation, dominance, silence. Still nothing I could prove. When we got access to the deed, something weird popped up. The house was purchased under two names, Daniel and Olivia Miles, but the IDs used were off. The social security numbers didn't match any real person. The photos looked right, but everything else? Fake. Even the notary stamp was bogus. So I brought Olivia in for a voluntary interview. She looked tired, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. I didn't push too hard, just asked where she and Daniel had come from before Maine. She paused, then said, "We moved around a lot." No specifics. I mentioned the documents. That's when she flinched. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You don't know what he was running from." "Not we. He." I asked her what he'd done. She said nothing. Then 2 days later, she vanished. No note. No trace. No one saw her leave. Her car was still in the impound. There was a report from a gas station an hour south, saying a woman matching her description had walked in and bought a burner phone with cash. She asked for directions to a bus station. After that, nothing. I spent the next month chasing shadows. Ran every possible variation of her name through our system. Olivia Miles, Olivia Daniels, Olivia Morgan, nothing. Even brought in a friend from out of state to help dig deeper, unofficially. He came back with something strange. Turns out, 5 years earlier, there was a house fire in Nebraska. Almost identical scenario. Isolated property. One body. One survivor, a woman listed as Emily Rhodes. Also unharmed. Also vanished. The house. Purchased under two false identities. Just like this one. That's when it hit me. Olivia and Emily were the same person. The more I looked into it, the more dead ends I hit. There were no digital footprints, no social media, no credit history, no employment records. It was like she only existed when someone else died. I revisited the crime scene just once more. The house had already been cleared out, ashes leveled. But in the dirt behind where the back door used to be, I noticed something I'd missed before. A rusted padlock, burnt and twisted, half buried in the soil. It had been used outside, like someone had locked the door from the yard. I knew then she didn't run because she was guilty. She ran because someone was still chasing her. After that, I started getting calls. Same block number every time. No voice this time. Just silence. Long, drawn-out silence. I'd answer, say hello, and they'd just listen. The calls always came after I filed a new report or shared a new theory with my chief. Eventually, I stopped talking about the case altogether. Then came the package. No return address. Just a manila envelope left on the front seat of my truck while I was buying groceries. Inside, a single Polaroid. Olivia, or whoever she really was, standing at a bus stop in what looked like Texas. Date stamped just 2 days prior. She was alone, staring straight at the camera. But there was a blur in the background. A man, watching her. I took it to the department. They told me to drop it. The official story is that Olivia died in the fire. That Daniel was an innocent man, and the whole thing was just a tragic accident. Case closed. But I know better. I think Olivia was running from something, or someone, for a long time. I think Daniel wasn't her husband at all. Maybe not even her captor. Maybe he was just one more person standing between her and freedom. Or maybe he was the only one who knew who she really was. I never saw her again, but sometimes when I'm driving through empty stretches of highway, I'll see a woman with dark hair standing by the side of the road. Just for a second, just out of reach. And every time I wonder, did she finally get away? Or is she still burning her way through the quiet? I got the call just after 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Kid gone missing from a local high school during the lunch period. No witnesses. No signs of struggle. Just gone. His name was Benjamin Howell, Benji. 16. Quiet kid, average grades, didn't play sports, didn't cause trouble. That kind of student the system tends to overlook until something goes wrong. When I pulled into the parking lot of Westridge High, I expected chaos, but it was eerily calm. Teachers were ushering kids into classrooms, murmuring about lockdown procedures. The principal, Mr. Collins, met me at the front steps with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We're doing everything we can," he said. I remember thinking how rehearsed that sounded. Benji had last been seen around 1:15, heading toward the old wing of the school, a part that had been under renovation for over a decade, according to staff. No cameras back there. No real reason for a student to be wandering through it. His backpack and hoodie were found later that day in one of the classrooms, room 3F. The door was locked from the inside. Here's the thing. That room hadn't been used since the early 2000s. Windows boarded, desks stacked against the wall, and most importantly, no working lights or ventilation. The only key that opened that corridor had supposedly gone missing weeks before. When I walked into 3F after we forced the door open, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Wisconsin weather. The air was dense, heavy, like the room didn't want us in there. Benji's backpack was sitting in the center of the floor. Next to it was a spiral notebook, pages torn out, pen snapped in half. No blood, no hair, no fibers, no signs of anyone else. The janitor, a man named Curtis, told me something that still sticks with me. He said he'd heard noises, screaming, actually, coming from that room over summer break. Figured it was just the old pipes or maybe some punk kids who broke in, he said. But now I'm not so sure. What made it worse? There were rumors, quiet ones, about another student who went missing back in 1987. Same school, same hallway, also during a lunch period. No one ever found him either. I asked the school board for access to the blueprints of the building, hoping to figure out if there were hidden passageways or maintenance tunnels. It took 3 days for them to find the documents. When they did, the plan skipped over the old wing entirely. Just a blank rectangle with the words, "Under review," stamped across it. I pressed harder. Interviewed teachers, staff, even former students. Most didn't remember anything unusual. A few got uncomfortable when I brought up room 3F. One retired teacher, Mrs. Elkins, said something odd. That room should have been sealed after the first one. She didn't elaborate. When I tried to follow up a few days later, her number was disconnected. I drove to her house, empty. For sale. Neighbors said she left in the middle of the night. Didn't even take the furniture. At this point, it didn't feel like a missing persons case anymore. It felt like everyone was pretending not to know something. Like the whole school had agreed, silently, to forget that room existed. But I wasn't ready to let it go. I came back to Westridge High on a Sunday morning, alone. No backup, no warrant, just a gut feeling that if I didn't see that room again, I'd never sleep right. I parked behind the gym and let myself in through a side entrance one of the janitors had told me about years ago. The old wing was colder than the rest of the school. Smelled different too, like wet cement and copper. Room 3F was still sealed with police tape, though I knew damn well no one had touched it since we left. When I stepped inside, it felt wrong, like the air was thicker. My flashlight started to flicker the second I passed the threshold. Just like before, Benji's notebook was there, but this time it was opened, and someone had written in it, "It doesn't stop when the door locks." The handwriting didn't match Benji's. I'd seen his notes. This was sharper, jagged, almost carved into the page. I flipped through. More pages were filled now, all in the same scrawl. Words like "they listen through the walls," "don't speak back," and "he's still hungry." Whatever sick joke this was, it wasn't funny. As I stood there, trying to make sense of it, I heard something. Breathing. Not mine. Slow, shallow, like someone crouched just out of sight. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my hand, sweeping the room. Nothing. No shadows moving. No creaking floorboards. But the breathing kept going. And it wasn't coming from inside the room. It was coming from inside the wall. I followed the sound to the back corner, where an old supply cabinet had been shoved up against the plaster. I moved it aside, revealing a section of wall that had been patched with mismatched paint. When I knocked, it echoed hollow. I marked it and left. I knew I couldn't open it alone. When I returned with a crew the next morning, the patch was gone. Not broken open. Gone. The wall was seamless. Freshly painted. White. Perfect. And the notebook. Missing. I was told to stop digging after that. My captain said the school board was pushing back, complaining about unnecessary disruption. I requested permission to revisit the original disappearance from 1987. Denied. No reason given. My desk was reassigned a week later. By the end of the year, I'd put in my papers. 3 years passed. I tried to move on. I told myself I did everything I could. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. I never found Benji. Never even found his body. And the older case? The one from '87? Every record was gone. Digitized systems lost the files. Paperwork misfiled. Every single photo, report, and interview vanished. But I didn't forget. Last fall, out of pure instinct, I drove by Westridge High again. It looked the same. Kids outside. Buses lining the curb. Normal. But then I saw something that froze my blood. The old wing, it had been sealed off completely. Brickwork replaced the hallway entrance. But on the outer wall, in small black letters, someone had written, "He's still in there." I went back 2 days later. The writing was gone, painted over, like it never existed. I don't tell people about this story. They think it's just another unsolved, another runaway. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And I know that Westridge High keeps its secrets buried behind bricks and white paint. But secrets like that don't stay quiet forever.